And welcome back, everybody! It's Tier List Fridays. For today, we have some fun range DPS specs. Flame,
of course, it's fun. Well, some of them are. Some of them are not so much. And we are getting closer and closer to the release of the expansion. And we're seeing massive nerfs on certain specs and massive, not so much, buffs on other specs. And although damage is kind of part of the fun, sometimes it's not the whole gist of it. Because sometimes it's fun to actually being able to press your buttons and not dying and having cool builds to play with and a lot of other stuff that we subjectively have decided makes spec fun for us. And that's how we will be ranking them today.
Yeah, it's very subjective, and I guess this is a good way to see what's lying ahead, especially since everybody now is testing specs on the pre-patch. I know we are doing a lot, and we have to go out and say that whatever happens on pre-patch doesn't necessarily reflect what's gonna happen in max level, Dragonflight, all of that stuff, because this is a beta, Dragonflight beta tier list, first of all. Okay, it's not pre-patch, but I do understand, a lot of people are testing this.
Yeah.
I know I tested some Outlaw Rogue, some Unholy Decay, and after playing a couple of dungeons and stuff on my Holy Decay, I could not help but notice that I was overcapping my burst, my wounds.
Your zits.
Yeah, so that's like a big problem. That's something that I kind of like got from Taze and Biceps. That, hey man, you really need to track that stuff somehow. And they recommended either like thread plates or plater. I tried both of them. I kind of stick with plater because
really?
it showed me, it gave me a better visual cue for my wounds over there.
All right.
And what I do, right? I just downloaded the CurseForge app as always, installed plater, customized it a bit, and voila! Now I don't overcap on my wounds on my Holy Decay in the pre-patch, and this goes like for everybody who's like testing any other spec, especially the specs that require you to track stuff on your target. It's easier to track on your target, right? Rather than maybe a weak core that's more in the middle, something like that. That's how it worked for me. I became a better player because
I've seen the damage increase. Like weirdly, one day you were doing double the damage, and I was like, all right, that's pretty cool.
Imagine the impact, right? So this is it. The CurseForge app is great for stuff like this, especially now in the pre-patch, and everybody's like testing out new specs and stuff, and having there's multiple add-ons that are working right now for the 10.0. If you're looking into the CurseForge app, looking on the add-ons, you can see the version they are updated for and working for. So now with the UI revamp and all of those, it's really good to like test out all of these add-ons, see what you're gonna work with for Dragonflight. So 100%. Thank you, CurseForge app, for sponsoring the video as always,
making it possible.
And remember, guys, this is very helpful for our content as well. If you look into the description, you click that link over there, install the CurseForge app for yourself, and see the wonders it can do for you as it's done for me. Now, wondrous or not, let's talk about Affliction Warlock baby.
All right,
Beautiful
talking
spec.
about
Beautiful.
underdogs coming back to the surface. Affliction has had quite a ride over the last couple of years, and we might be seeing it in its final form.
Oh yeah,
Affliction is looking juicy, man. It's looking so
had
good.
Massive improvements all across the board. I mean, it's had so many cool builds. Not to mention the fact that Vile 10 applies Agony and AoE, which is
so
giga fun to play. I know there was a lot of talk in the past about Affliction, being a little bit gimpy in AoE, especially Shadowlands, like first seasons. You didn't really see that much. But now with all of the Dragonflight stuff, even Dark Glare can do AoE now.
Yeah,
so
that's like they added so many toys, man. And now, previously with the old system, you could either choose to play Vile Taint or Sow the Seeds and stuff like that. Now you can play both, so you actually feel like you have an AoE identity and you feel like you can contribute properly. And obviously the talent rework and all of that really helps put Affliction on the map.
It's fun.
And
it's fun.
We can see a lot of people playing it even in pre-patch, man. It's amazing.
It's wrecking. And what a way to start the tier list, man. This is a guaranteed S tier for us.
Yes.
S tier.
Up
there you go. It's 100% there, man. No questions asked. Okay. Now, on to the next favorite range DPS of mine for life, Mr. KFC. It's finger-licking dots, moon shining, blasting over the DPS meters. Not so much. Boomkin, balanced druid. Now, more focus on dots, I would say.
Dude, it's like a massive focus on dots. And personally, I don't mind it. I kind of like that as well. But I can see how that identity is fairly newish, but not really new.
It's divisive for sure.
It's definitely different than what balance felt like in BFA and definitely in Shadowlands as well, where sure you had dots, but the the extent of how much dots will alter your damage, especially with the Starfall talents, with the Starfall rework, which personally, I kind of like that you can stack Starfall now, and you don't have that cooldown anymore, which always felt a little bit weird. And hopefully with all of this buff, it makes it worth it to be played. But there are still some like weird things going on with the chicken.
Yeah, now, I mean, I'm not going to comment too much on it because, you know, I'm very biased towards this spec, so we'll do what you will. I know it got some huge nerfs to specific playstyles, like with the Pulsar thing. And all those. I mean,
but there are some like cool stuff though.
I know. This is what I'm saying. So, as biased as I can be towards the Boomkin, I cannot help but see like the changes in playstyle, and actually, you know, being more focused on that, for me, that's a little bit more appealing. I would say. I know it's divisive. Some people just hate it, but it's not bad. I mean, in terms of like fun, I think Flame would agree.
It's close to being S tier. The capsules that it had can offer you some cool playstyles for Boomy. Not to mention that the coolest stuff that Boomy could do over the years were always at a choice between other stuff. So it always felt like you were getting like 70 or 80% of the potential fun that you could get as Boomy, considering that you had to choose between New Moon and, you know, Solstice or whatever it's called. Not Solstice,
or the wing or the leg, depending on what you like to
eat.
You know, it's all good. It's a chicken after all. All right, next up, let's talk about Arcane Mage, which is a very solid spec. It's giga fun to play. It's something that you either enjoy or you really hate. I think like the biggest risk for Arcane Mage is like with the same build kind of. It looks like the build will be the same for a very long time if they don't make like...
That's the controversial bit, because this happened in 9.2 in Shadowlands, where they added the Harmonic Echo playstyle and now it made it into the talents. This is like an acquired taste, let's say. To me personally, it's interesting because it adds a layer of depth to Arcane. It definitely offers you more possibility of doing your damage, and so far it has worked wonders in AoE and single target, so having dual application felt really cool. But I can understand that really takes Arcane into a direction that's more difficult to play, more complicated to play, and for some people more annoying. But with that out of the way, considering that the talents can actually offer you a chance to not play that if you're not interested, you know, min-maxing, I think that's cool. And dude,
that's very important.
Arcane Surge.
The way they changed it. Explode! That's what I'm saying. So if you're not in the range of like min-maxing, you have multiple toys and bells and whistles to play around and try out different builds. It's all good, and that is giga fun. So I'm gonna place it into A tier, man. I don't know if I should place it. I think it's behind Boomy.
It's behind Boomy,
Yeah, in terms of fun, okay, this is a fun tier list, guys. We're not looking at damage or performance or anything like that.
Speaking of fun,
Beastmaster Hunter. Listen, I'm gonna let you give it a go, because I know you have your solid opinion about BM with Dragonflight.
The problem with all of this, man, is that I'm emotionally attached to Beast Mastery, and I've been emotionally attached to Beast Mastery ever since 18
That's because
years
his father
ago.
was a Beastmaster, you know. And
because I'm a beast. But I digress. 17 years ago, when I saw the cinematic for World of Warcraft and I saw that dwarf ordering his bear to charge that Torn, I was like, that is what I want to do. And from there on, I've played Beast Mastery for the entirety of my WoW playstyle, and to see it the way it is now, it's just a little bit weird because it seems all over the place. There's a heavy focus on barb shot playstyles, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Barb shot frenzy, basically. But it's kind of feels like it's probably the only one that really works and deals a lot of damage. The talents that buff this playstyle, and you also have the choice of, you know, playing Dire Beast, which actually sounds really cool to just summon like a gazillion pets from all over the place. This is like spread out through the talent tree.
So this is the thing. BM has its potential of fun and engaging gameplay being locked behind. It's very hard to get to like capsules. It's like a lot of 3-point talents still, which is very weird because most of the specs have dropped this philosophy on 3-point talents, and this kind of like just gates what could be hell of a fun to play, right? So because of this, we should put it into...
It's C tier. I feel like it has potential to be really cool, but it just either feels unfinished or just weird, like they don't know what to do with it. So I don't know.
All right, but as opposed to BM Hunters, let's get into Demonology Warlock, which we're both fans of, and but there's a lot of love for this spec. Traditionally, it has been doing very great in the last couple of seasons of Shadowlands, but now looking at it, and it's gonna be hard competition with Affliction. But that being said, you know, some cool new playstyles. You know, having a beef you know, Giga Felguard, you know,
dude,
it's
that's so cool, dude. You throw your axe with your Felguard and it starts punching.
Yeah,
shit.
I know. It's so cool.
That's cool.
That's part of what makes it fun for us. Like little things like that is, but also like, you know, the play styles, the build diversity, which enable those play styles. It's really cool, and you're kind of tanky. Like, is it like
it's the warlock fantasy. I mean, all specs are tanky, sure, but.
Is Demonology like the most resilient out of them all?
I feel like I feel it more as Demonology, since you're probably stuck in one place casting more so than the other specs more often than not.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like you're getting hit by more stuff, so your tankiness kind of shows up more in actual play with Demonology. And to be fair, like you are casting, especially if you play stuff like Nether Portal, you're going to be hard casting for like at least 10 to 15 seconds straight, which is something that not a lot of casters have to do. So you probably will be hit by something, and that's the healer's job. What are you gonna do?
Also, Pit Lord, and it's good now, and it's good. So you already, you know, jizzed when you saw that homeboy coming in, and it was kind of shit, right?
Slapping.
Now it's good. So
it's good. I would put it above Boomy.
Yeah, it's in the front of the line here, and almost S tier, but it's pretty hard to compete with Affliction.
It's hard. I mean, even if I'm Demonology fan as a warlock, I have to give it to Affliction first.
Okay. Next on the list, the Destruction Warlock. So we're basically covering all the warlock specs over here. I mean, more or less same argument I would say as Demo. We have a lot of cool stuff being brought in for Destruction. I mean, many infernals on the way, you know, make it feel that's fun.
You would have think that after 9.2 they would stray away from what made Destruction really overpowered, and the playstyle is still there. Obviously it has been tuned down to not be so ridiculous and degenerate, but you can access it and you have like cool upgrades. I feel like Destruction has gotten pretty much all of the cool stuff that Destruction has gotten in the last couple of years, and seeing that it was the simpler spec of the warlock, it feels like really cool to have this is Infernal. You can make Infernal stronger in AoE, you can make it a single target, you can do both, you can make it explode and all that, and I feel like this is really cool for Destruction. And you know, for more of these details, we also have a Warlock podcast that you can watch.
Yeah, basically Destruction got all of its nice toys from the past. They're working beautifully, they have synergy between each other, not to mention Soulfire is very satisfying to play as well. So I guess
I would put it. It's hard to put it in front or below Demonology.
If we could put it on the same place, but I would still biased as I am because I like. This is our tier list, so we have to make a decision. I think we can both agree that Demonology is more appealing.
Because Pit Lord,
man. Pit Lord. In an army of imps and demons, I mean, you cannot beat that fantasy.
You have the whole family there.
Get out of here. Get out of here. All right, now next on the list, Fire Mage. Fire Mage, ups and downs for, you know, most of our tier list, but when it comes to fun in Dragonflight, I believe Fire Mage right now is probably at its best it could have ever been. I've been through the Fire Mage iteration, especially with the combustion iterations from Cataclysm, with the crit multiplier, all the way to, you know, the super giga ignite dot damage in BFA, and, you know, Shadowlands was interesting with the, you know, the short cooldown for it to kindling and to pyroclasm legendary. So I've been through it all and I loved it more or less, never hated the spec too much. But now in Dragonflight, it has kind of everything you wanted to have. The spec is playing like a mad pyromaniac, crazy machine.
That's exactly what you want to do. And as someone who has criticized the design of Fire for years and years and years, I actually see myself having Fire as an alt right now, maybe even as a main, because it does what Fire is supposed to do. It feels wild, it feels uncontrollable, it feels explosive, and you have like all the cool stuff. You know, you mentioned Sun King, and you have some cool stuff like, you know, Fiery Rush, and I think they renamed it Hyper Mania or something.
Something like that.
The one that you got like 5 seconds of everything is instant. Fire Blessing.
This is the thing. The spec. I mean, if you played Fire, you know, in previous expansions, sure, it was a very fast-paced spec, always was, but the smoothness of it sometimes would get gimped. You had to be really super methodical for it and have really good muscle memory to play, especially the latest iteration in Season 3 and 4. I feel like they actually addressed this in a very neat way where you just, the spec flows, whatever build you take, it just flows so good. And you don't feel gimped for like, oh my god, I don't have enough blast stacks, or I don't have enough Phoenix Flames or whatever. There's something about it that just flows naturally right now, and for me, it's an S tier.
It's in front of Affliction. As much as I'm a Warlock fan, above Mage, and I've always, you know, been Mage is a little bit too vanilla for me, but I have to give it to Fire. I think it's one
so
of the
good.
best.
They did such a good job.
Best
Yeah.
ranged spec.
What about Frost Mage now?
Okay, so
and I loved Frost Mage as well.
I always liked Frost more than Fire over the years because it has like some cool identities there. You have, you know, the Frozen Ore build, you have the Glacial Spike build, which is really cool. And recently, in the latest couple of patches, let's say, you have some interesting cool additions to Icelands, which kind of has been made really explosive with the beginning of Shadowlands, but now you also have some talents that make Icelands pretty cool. However, I feel like it's falling a little bit short, and I cannot really put my finger on it. First of all, the talent tree is almost good, but it feels like it's also a little bit annoying. I think
one of the biggest problems is, and again, this is for us specifically, and me here, I feel like they had an opportunity to like have more stuff being baked into Glacial Spike and have that
that's
gameplay.
Cool, man.
Yeah,
like,
that's for a lot of people that's uber cool, right? They could have had it, but instead they kind of focused a lot on Frostball talents, which at the end of the day, sure, it's part of the Frost Mage fantasy or whatever, but it's a boring spell, man. It's not like you can do much with it. Like, what can it do? You have like the Frostball, the traditional thing, you cast that shit, and then you have like the Glacial Spike.
I mean, yeah, see, I mean, I'm not opposed to making a boring spell more interesting. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
The philosophy is good, but
if you sacrifice making a more interesting spell even more interesting, like the way Fire does, like, I can see them doing more with, you know, Glacial Spike. But at least, for my opinion, I was always a big fan of Frozen Orb and Blizzards. So at least you can actually take pretty much everything you want related to Frozen Orb and Blizzard before and probably do really, really well, depending on the numbers.
It's not an A tier. It's not a C. It's not. I mean, it's still fun. It still has its things.
It falls a little bit short.
Yeah, I would have loved it for me, like to be in an A tier. It should have had something more with Glacial Spike and things like that. More, I would say, bombastic and a little bit less on the Frostball thing. But hey, that's just us, me, whatever. Marksmanship Hunter.
Similar to Frost, it has some cool additions and some annoying additions. My opinion on Hunter is very, very biased and has been biased throughout the entire development of Dragonflight for a lot of reasons. But Marksmanship does do a couple of things cool. Like, one of the coolest things that it does is actually took Wailing Arrow and made a build out of it. You actually have upgrades in it, provided an identity to it. And although it's not the same, it kind of slightly reminds me of Black Arrow, which is something that people have been crying over for years, ever since they changed survival back into melee. So maybe this could be the next best thing. And if we're gonna have an expansion where we're gonna fight Sylvanas, get her bow, and you know, because she's a ranger, she's supposed to be a marksmanship hunter, getting her ability into the actual class actually feels like the best thing they could have done fantasy-wise.
It's the saving grace for the spec, which will not place it into C.
Thematically wise,
you know, the spec does definitely have potential to be like one of the funnest specs ever. I just feel like there's still like some choices, and the talents are still kind of weird with Serpent Sting and multi-shot and all those shenanigans over there. It kind of gimps what could be a very fun spec. It's not bad to play. I'm sure a lot of marksman mains will still play marksman.
It's likely gonna do a lot of damage still, but
B tier, but I don't know if I should.
I put it in front of Frost Mage. I think it does some things that's a little bit cooler.
All right. Next on the list, Devastation.
New kid, new thing.
Yeah, the star of the show. I mean, traditionally we were kind of like hyped, as a lot of people were, for this spec. And it hasn't really let us down too much. I would say it's still one of the most fun, especially since it's.
I mean, let's address the elephant in the room. As far as new classes are concerned, and obviously people are interested in DPS more than anything, this has garnered the least amount of hype out of all of the classes they've announced prior, like Demon Hunter, DK, and Monk, and stuff like that. So, I guess maybe okay. So I am here to be devil's advocate. I actually, after playing Evoker for quite a while, I don't particularly mind that my dragon is skinny, considering that all it can do is just cast stuff. That's fine. If they ever make it a tank and they make it skinny, then we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah, we're gonna have a discussion.
But until then, I'm actually warming up more and more to Devastation. It is similar to Preservation. It is a very acquired taste. It's not for everyone. However, if you want something new and interesting, because it is a new class and it's interesting, I would highly recommend playing it because you will probably have fun. I cannot really see how you're not.
It's definitely a more methodical spec, as maybe opposed to a couple of the range DPS specs we have here already placed on the tier list. It's definitely, you know, it has like the spells are real, being new, they're very satisfying to use as well.
Breathing fire.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot. There's a high mobility as well. It's everything baked in. I guess like you can talk about maybe lack of build diversity because
that comes down to tuning, but we haven't seen as much tuning done. So maybe that's why that can be for me that seems to be a problem.
Yeah,
since
I mean, I feel like for me it's not necessarily S tier because I would have loved a lot more like stuff to either activate more instant cast spells. I feel like the spec has a lot of like long cast situations of there, which for some people is fine. I prefer a lot more things to be given, not to have like 5 instant cast spells, but some mechanic that would let me activate something. And I'm with the fire mage bias here, obviously. But not only that, I mean, you can see that for other specs as well, like elemental and shit like that. So definitely an A tier in terms of fun. It's gonna be, I think it's
I would put it either in between the warlocks or in the front of A tier. It remains to be seen because the build diversity is a big miss.
I'm not trading my demonology for this, man. I'm sorry. Demonology keeps the lead. Keeps the lead, no problemo. And speaking of elemental shaman, fun,
sure.
Yay or nay?
Elemental is really cool. Elemental has gotten quite a few changes to the talent, and it is part of the shaman.
It is just shaman, come on.
We value here as one of the best design classes in Dragonflight, and it actually has some cool stuff. It has some cool designs. Now, we're not talking necessarily about numbers because I have seen and heard people complain about the numbers, but that always goes back and forth depending on the tuning. However, in terms of like fantasy and playstyle, I mean, are we gonna argue that Elemental has the coolest sound effects and animations in the game?
There's no comparison. There's no comparison. There's no competition. Again, the argument is solid once again. If you want to have fun, and the fun being baked out of like multiple talents and synergies between them and stuff, adding to that, you know, the classic Elemental visuals and sound. Performance, we're not going to touch on that, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be absolutely fine.
It's going to be fine, yeah.
I wouldn't put it into S tier, but definitely in front of A tier.
I would put it behind Devastation, though.
Here,
I think Elemental is fine, but it's good.
All right, Shadow Priest. Now this is a hot topic in discussion. No, you gotta stay because I know you have a lot to say. So I've played Shadow Priest, I think sometime in the alpha, and I found it pretty good at the time. There has been, I think, 2 or 3 iterations since then. And I'm not sure anymore because I'm hearing things left and right. I know you have a lot more to say on
that's
this.
the thing, because I kind of like the direction that they were taking Shadow Priest until you actually get to play it and realize exactly what's going on under the hood, because Shadow Priest has a lot of problems. And unfortunately, the problems are not very obvious for everybody. So they did listen to a lot of the players and remove Searing Nightmare and things like that, which one of the things that Searing Nightmare did was, you know, do AoE damage and apply stuff like Shadow War Pain in AoE. You take that away, and we had Dark Void, but Dark Void that applies Shadow War Pain in AoE is target capped. And you basically, this is a theme that you go into Shadow, where if you do play in AoE and you want to apply dots, you are gimped as opposed to what was before, and definitely worse than stuff like Balance and Affliction that have ways to very reliably apply dots in AoE, whereas Shadow Priest has most of its abilities, Dark Void and stuff, cooldown based, that are not affected by haste, making it even worse feeling, and you just sometimes just sit there for a long time without being able to apply dots in AoE unless you individually target each enemy, and we all know from history that's not
the best thing you can do. I guess it's sad, to be honest, and it definitely hinders the fun because the spec honestly feels unfinished, and it's like the 3rd time in a row now on the new expansion where you get this feeling for Shadow. I wouldn't say it's like uber bad to put it into a D tier in terms of fun, but I don't think it's gonna take the cake even from BM at this point.
I think it's the worst out of all of them. It's definitely feels like I don't want to like shit on the devs at all, actually, because I cannot imagine how difficult it is. This is clearly a difficult spec to get right. It's not necessarily easy. However, going into the priest community and seeing what everybody has, especially the theory crafters, have to say about it, it feels like the feedback has been given out, but it's not taken fully into consideration. I don't know if there's lack of communication there, but it feels like a lot of the issues are now responded upon.
There are a couple of specs in Dragonflight that probably will see a better light in 10.1, and Shadow I think is among them. Guardian Druid as well, Red Paladin. Luckily, you know, enhancement has been changed during Shadowlands, and it was pretty good. But the enhancement was used to be in the same bucket, so there's a couple of specs that definitely are in need.
Still hope, but you know.
But yeah, I don't see necessarily too much happening at the launch of Dragonflight, or even better at the start of season 1. But hey, based on the fun we had on the beta with these specs,
this is kind of how it's looking.
Rank is how it's looking. Yeah, we have a couple of S tiers. We have a lot of A tiers. B is like, yeah, it's still fun, but definitely not there yet. I mean, not on the list of actually having to all these specs. And C is like, okay, definitely needs more to be engaging.
Needs more work. C has potential. We kind of debated if we're gonna have anything into D tier, but I think D tier being like worst of the worst is probably...
That's not the case. That's not the case.
Hopefully never.
Hopefully never, yeah. But all of these specs can be tested out right now on the pre-patch, and I do want to remind you guys, whatever happens on the pre-patch, whatever numbers you see or tuning from Blizzard is nothing to be reflected on the actual season start when you have, you know, level 70 full talents and, you know, get your tier set and everything like
specs
that.
Specs are all tuned for level 70, not for 60.
Yeah, but if you do want to test out specs and see for yourself, you can definitely give it a go. Make sure to download the CurseForge app from the description on this video and install all of the add-ons that work. Again, I used Plater right now. I replaced with Plater to have a better visual cue for my resources.
It's happening.
You can do whatever you want. So that being said, thank you Patreons for supporting the video. Thank you CurseForge for sponsoring and being a good sport, always supporting the content. And thank you for watching this video. You're a true legend.
Trooper.
I've not seen anything like it in a million years, and I've lived for a million years. All right, now you have a great weekend.
Thank it is.
Bye.
See you next time.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.